engineering, manufacturing, development. Last time you may remember the four developmental aircraft were essentially cost plus incentive nature, a cost plus structure to work through the developmental aspects of the aircraft, and then a fixed price type of a contract for first lots, and then budgetary, if you will, budgetary numbers, projections regarding the balance of lots for the program. This is very, very different. This is an 18-year fixed price contract, including a fixed price structure even for development. Now, fixed price is interesting. If you look at fixed price in the context of acquisition reform, fixed price is essentially applied to things that are known, where the risk is minimal. But acquisition reform really has to do with balance of risk and allocation of risk. And here, by approaching this as a fixed price effort, the assumption appears to be that this is a low-risk effort. And while the 373 requirements, you could argue they're requirements that can be accomplished, I said, we'll assume that everyone will satisfy the 373. There is developmental risk. A portion of these requirements are not on our aircraft today. I'm not sure about our competitor, but my guess is they have the same challenge, where a portion of these requirements really are developmental in nature. There's also concurrency. You have development, and you have the first few lots of production aircraft overlap to a certain extent. And so there's concurrency risk. Things that you learn out of the developmental portion of the program will overlap with the first few lots of aircraft that are produced during low-rate production. So the question is, in a fixed price environment where cost is fixed, price is fixed, if you will, and scope is fixed, it really limits the government's ability to make changes unless the government wants to reopen a sole source negotiated contract. My guess is that'll be a very expensive proposition to do that. Or the government can keep the baseline fixed for 18 years, keep the budget fixed for 18 years, and in the end, assess the gap between the product that's delivered and the baseline warfighting capability, the value capability that was articulated in the white papers, articulated as the game-changing requirements 18 years prior. That's the challenge of an 18-year fixed price contract. Next slide. I tried to articulate what this really means in terms of where you were versus what you're going to get to. Everybody is familiar with the spider chart, and it wouldn't be a briefing without the spider chart. And so let me discuss the three different lines here. The blue outside is what the Air Force bought last time. That was our offering. That was what selected. What was selected. You see the quantity of fuel offloaded range, number of pallets, max payload in tons. Everything is there. The KC-135 is the green line or green pattern that's on the inside. That's what they have today. Our perspective is those 373 threshold requirements drive both offerers to get as close as possible to the red pattern. And so, as the government said during its presentation, when they initially briefed the RFP, KC-135 is the baseline. KC-135 is the baseline. And this is why it's the baseline. If you were able to build a new KC-135 today competitively, you could win this competition. So the question from a warfighter perspective is, what happened to all that opportunity space? Everything that they bought last time. Everything they bought last time at a very competitive price. How did they get that today? Next slide. So I'm going to wrap it up here and essentially finish with the same things that I said at the very beginning. That the draft RFP eliminates or marginalizes the very things that the warfighter valued during the last competition. The government has no apparent mechanism to protect its interest against a lowball bid or an unrealistic schedule. And this really is a cost shootout that incentivizes a race to the bottom from a requirement standpoint, from a capability standpoint. And forces industry to think about price risk that may never materialize. So in the end, compared to the last competition, we may be on a path where the taxpayer may pay more for less capability. think as the department has stated, its objective is to acquire the best value capability for the warfighter at the best price for the taxpayer. It is not evident to us that this RFP accomplishes that goal. So where do we go from here? Again, as I started, this is a shaping process. We are very, very pleased that the department has chosen to move on with this program, with this contract, to issue a draft RFP that allows us and our competitor to offer comments, to try and get the best possible RFP possible, to get the best value aircraft tanker for our warfighter. And so it appears there are 4 paths. The government can fix the issues that were identified by industry. We submitted comments, as Randy mentioned previously. They can address those issues and move on. It's not clear to me how you do that. I know that we submitted many questions and many issues that are on the table. And so it's a very complex process for the department to take all that and create essentially an RFP, a final RFP that achieves their objectives. So that's the first path. The second path is, I guess they could just say, thank you very much for your comments, we're moving on anyway. And at that point, obviously, both competitors would have to understand what next steps would be. How would industry respond to that? And what would that RFP look like? The third is to think about what GAO said. And GAO said, fix these 8 things and get on with it. It's one possible option, is to revert back to what GAO said to do to begin with. And then the fourth, you may have heard the concept of continuous competition that some have promoted. That's a process by which competitive pressure is maintained on both offerers, essentially delivering more tankers faster to the warfighter and keeping both industry providers in the tanker competition throughout the election program. So those are the possible paths ahead, and we look forward to working with the Defense Department to resolve the issues that we've identified, and we look forward to getting an RFP that allows us to provide the best value capability